think about it. When we're having a feeling, we can, putting it into perspective, if we know we're going to feel anxious in a meeting, you can say, well, I'm going to be angry in that conversation. I'm going to get anxious in that conversation. What can I do to prevent that from happening?
Welcome to the Brain Fit Podcast, where we share the cutting-edge science on how you can improve your memory and live a happier, healthier life. Welcome to the Brain Fit Podcast. My name's Robert Love. I'm a neuroscientist. I have a medical clinic in Florida where we are reversing Alzheimer's in our patients. Today, our guest is Dr. Marc Brackett, a professor from Yale University, who just came out with a new book that I want to tell you about. Dr. Brackett is one of the world's leading experts in emotions, emotional health, emotional regulation, and emotional intelligence. He's going to share with us some tips that you can use to regulate yourself, help regulate your spouse, your husband, your wife, your significant other, and even with your children. This is a fantastic interview. I was very lucky to get time with him. So here is Dr. Marc Brackett from Yale University. Dr. Marc Brackett, thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So you are talking about a really interesting topic that is so relevant today, emotions, whether we're dealing with our children, and goodness gracious, children are suffering right now because they're spending their time on their devices and getting bullied online, whether we're talking with someone who has different politics than us, or whether we're dealing with a spouse or for a lot of my viewers, dealing with someone who's struggling with dementia and losing their mind. Emotions are so important, not only to the quality of life, but our health. And you have this new book that just came out today, dealing with feeling. And so I'd love to dive right into that. So tell us, what do we need to know about the book? You're not only an academic, but you really care about bringing this information to the people so we can use it. And I love that. Thank you so much for that. We need more of that. What do people need to know from the book about our emotions?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that people need to learn, but the first is that emotions are data, emotions are information. I like to say that there's no such thing as a bad emotion. A lot of people think anxiety and fear or disappointment and despair or hopelessness are these bad emotions, and happiness and elation and contentment and tranquility are the good ones, but that's not really the way it works. Anxiety can be helpful. It tells us that there is uncertainty about the future. We can do better planning for the future. And so I think if we can shift our mindset from emotions are good and bad to emotions are information and data to help us make meaning out of our lives, that's a huge step forward. So that's number one.
And so in this book, you have something that's unique and very powerful. You have a formula for emotional regulation. Can you walk us through that and how we can use that, perhaps a couple of situations where we might be able to apply that?
Of course. So once we understand that there's no such thing as a bad emotion, and we understand that emotions are powerful for our attention and for our memory and for learning and decision-making and relationships and our performance, then we can decide, well, even though they're not good or bad, there are times when we have strong emotions that we have to deal with. I mean, have you ever had an intense emotion that got the best of you?
Many times.
Right. We all do it, right? It's like someone activates you or triggers you, and all of a sudden it's like you want to say something. Sometimes you do. There's sirens now, so that's triggering me from being focused. But nevertheless, we have to deal with our feelings. And just to put this in context, before the pandemic, I wrote this book called Permission to Feel. And then the pandemic hit, and people said to me something like the following, Marc, thank you for giving me permission to feel, but now what the heck do I do with all these feelings that I'm having? Because I'm overwhelmed by my feelings. And that's when I did a lot of research and decided to put together this new book that I call Dealing with Feeling. And it's guided by this formula that you're referring to. So emotion regulation is ER. And then we have a little parentheses, and we're going to say G plus S. Okay, emotion regulation is a set of goals and strategies. So let's stop there for a minute. What does it mean, goals and strategies? Well, think about it. When we're having a feeling, we can, putting it into perspective, if we know we're going to feel anxious in a meeting, or as a parent, you have to talk to my husband a wife talking to her husband, or a husband talking to his wife, or a parent having to give like really kind of harsh feedback to their kid, you can say, well, I'm going to be angry in that conversation. I'm going to get anxious in that conversation. What can I do to prevent that from happening? So you can be kind of forward looking, which is really cool. Like a kid in school, like, oh, I'm going to get anxious. I know I'm going to be anxious during that test. So what can I do on Monday to prepare for Thursday, as opposed to like just being kind of shocked by my feelings in the moment? That's a prevention strategy.
I love that strategy. I've talked with teachers and professors. I've said, how many of you understand that stress impairs performance on tests? They all raised their hand. Said,
Yeah.
and what do tests do to students? They stress them out. I said, what are you doing about this? And just crickets. No one had any idea. But this is a great tool for students and professors to use. Say, look, let's plan this in advance so you can regulate your emotions. That way you can perform at your top level. Certainly, you're a professor at Yale. Students are performing at the very highest level there, so that way they can perform on their tests. This is great.
And then you need to reduce a difficult emotion. So someone says, like, let's say you said something to me like, you know, Mark, I think your formula is a piece of garbage. And I'm like, whoa, I'm gonna like, in that moment, here I am being videotaped. It's like, Mark, don't say it. Don't retaliate. Take your deep breath, Mark. So that's reducing an unwanted emotion. Then the I have an acronym, it's PRIME, is initiate. So you want to initiate a feeling. Let's say you're a person at work and you have a team and you want to make kind of get people motivated, and maybe you want to induce some inspiration. So you think about what can I say? What music can we play? What activity can we do to kind of get people in the zone for, the goals that you have. The M in PRIME is maintain. So I don't know. Have you ever had a good day, Robert?
I am blessed to have mostly good days.
Lucky you. But has there ever been a good day and then like something kind of interferes with that?
Yeah.
So it's like, how do you bounce back? How do you go back from like, wow, I joke about this, but I have a brother who I'm very close to, who is a doctor, and he's like, patient, 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 patient. I'm a psychologist, researcher, so I can like spend a couple hours in a coffee shop writing, and he'll sometimes call me to check in, like just randomly, and he'll say things like, how's it going? I'm like, I'm doing great. I'm like working on this book. I'm so excited, and I'm like in the zone. I'm in flow. And he's like, but I hear all these people behind you. There's music, there's blenders, and like, he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, I'm at a coffee shop. And he's like, oh, so you can work in coffee shops? I'm like, yeah. And then all of a sudden he's like trying to make me feel bad. And I'm like, Dave, guess what? You're raining on my parade. I gotta go. So I want to like keep my emotion. It's maintenance. And then the final one is kind of enhancing an emotion. It's like boosting it. And then the strategies are the ones we can talk about for a while, which are these things we do in our heads, like the self-talk that we could use, or the behaviors, like taking a walk or calling a friend. So emotion regulation is a set of goals and strategies, right? Now, how we choose the goal and the strategy is based on the emotion we're feeling, because what we do to regulate anxiety and sadness and anger and happiness may be very different. The person who we are, so some of us are introverts, some of us are extroverts.
If you suffer from brain fog, or if you'd like to increase your mental clarity, I have a great supplement called Neuro Plus Brain and Focus Formula that can be really helpful to you. This is a combination of 7 powerful ingredients that are shown to improve memory, improve focus, improve attention, reduce brain fog, and increase mental clarity. I really like to take this in the afternoon if I'm feeling afternoon brain fog, or if I'm feeling tired. This helps give my brain more energy so I can continue to work during the day. This works really well in the morning with morning coffee and lion's mane. This also works in the afternoon alone or with lion's mane. Do not take this at night. It is very stimulating. It's very powerful. This can help reduce or even end brain fog in as little as 3 days. The average is about 2 weeks, and it comes with a 6-month unconditional money back guarantee, so you can try it risk-free. So if you want to try this risk-free, go to robertlove.net and then click the link that says Neuro Plus Brain and Focus Formula.
How do you describe yourself? Are you more outgoing or are you more shy?
I'm extrovert when I'm around people, and I also, as I've gotten older, I really enjoy my alone time. And so I used to be extremely outgoing and gregarious. I've toned that down a little bit. I'm less obnoxious now than I was in my 20s. But I'd say I'm pretty highly extroverted, but I do like my alone time.
And so, but you like being around people in general. Like, yeah. So I like being around like a couple people. I'm more on the introverted side. So after a long day of work, like I had guests at my house this weekend, and if they listen to this, I apologize for what I'm about to say. I could not wait for them to leave. I was just like, I am drained from your energy. I need space. I want to be alone. I want to read. I want to think. And like it was just like, and other people will be like, let's have more company and let's go now. Now that they're gone, I want to go out to a bar and like party. I'm like, I need to like go on a vacation. And I share that because, how we regulate is based on the feeling, who we are as people, including our culture and background, and then finally the context that we're in. Because not every strategy is available to you in every context. So right now, if I get like flustered by this conversation, I can't be like, Robert, you seem like a great guy, but I'm like overwhelmed. I need to go for a run. And you'd be like, okay, that's a little weird. Like, you want me to just sit here and wait for you to go for a run because you're anxious? I'm like, yeah, okay.
Hey, bring me on the treadmill. I'll go on my treadmill. We'll do a walking and
Hey,
talking. That would be great.
I would love, actually, I have one of those and I use it all the time and I love it. Um, but we could have done a treadmill session together. That would have been fun.
I love what you said about who you are, and so much in the area of self-help, so much in the area of science matters on who you are, whether it's your genetics, whether or not this drug is going to have a good result for you, your gut bacteria, is this food actually going to work for you, or is it going to cause distress? And then how do you regulate what's good for you? Is cold plunge going to be good for you or bad for you? Is talking to a friend or going out in a
Mhm.
public space good for you or bad for you? And I love what you said about culture. Cultures, different things mean different things to different people. And so this is really important for everyone listening to understand yourself so that you can effectively choose strategies and implement those strategies.
And understand your partner or your kid because they may have a different formula than you. How they want to deal with their sadness or anger based on their personality um, may be very different. I see this all the time with parents and kids. It's like, well, just get over it, like move on. It's like, I'm a little bit more sensitive than that, or, just go talk to him. Go, 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 go make friends. And the kid is more on the timid side. And it's like, no, 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 that's a little overwhelming for me. I need a little bit more scaffolding. So,
If there's time, I want to ask you about the impact of social media on the emotions of children. I think this is really interesting. I know we have a whole lot to cover, but
sure.
if we can touch on that. So, and you mentioned the context that we are in. So,
Yeah,
context affects what strategies we're able to do.
correct. So if you're a kid in school, and let's say you're someone who likes to, you need movement, but the teacher's very strict. Now you must sit in your seat. It's like, I know, but like, I need a little bit of, I need movement. Well, no, no, we don't move in this school. Oh, okay, that's weird. Or you are, when I give speeches, I do a lot of public speaking. You know, I love yoga, but I can't just like, everybody, I'm going to downward dog now. It's like, what's Mark doing on stage right now? Because he's overwhelmed. He's doing like yoga poses. I mean, I can get away with it maybe for a minute as a joke, but I can't like go do yoga for 15 minutes to calm my nervous system down. I've got to like use self-talk strategies. Mark can get through this. Mark, you've done this talk 300 times. You can do it. So, point is that emotion regulation is a set of goals and strategies, and those are a function of the feeling or the emotion we're having, the person who we are, and the context we're in. And that kind of just guides how people kind of choose and use different strategies.
And then fantastic. Then you mentioned prime. I want to make sure I get all those. I missed the P and the R. I have initiate, maintain, enhance. Can you go over prime one more time again, please?
Prevent.
Prevent.
So we want to prevent unwanted emotions. By the way, that's not just negative emotions. I could prevent, maybe I'm really in a funny, funny mood and I'm going to be going to a funeral. I want to be like, kind of down regulate that, happiness and be more serious. R is reduce an emotion. So it's like down regulate too, but that's going from like an intense emotion. Same thing. You can be, you know, I'm super excited. We're going away vacation this weekend, but I got to take a test. Oh, Mark, go from elated, ecstatic, excited to calm, content, peaceful. So we can reduce anger to being peeved, or we can reduce excitement to being calm. Initiate is whatever emotion is going to be the most useful. Maintain is kind of going back to where you're at. And enhance is kind of just like, I'm giving a speech and I'm noticing the room is like, ugh. And I'm like, ooh, I need to figure out a way to kind of energize this audience.
Fantastic. So prevent, reduce, initiate, maintain, and enhance. I
Right.
want to apply this to a couple of situations. I would like to thank our sponsor, Dr. Love's MagnaSleep. This is my new magnesium supplement I designed with Dr. Kareem Zamori. This is the best magnesium supplement out there in the market. Let me explain why. First of all, it's got the right forms of magnesium. It's got magnesium threonate, which is really good for brain health. It's a smaller form of magnesium that can cross into the brain. Magnesium glycinate, very absorbable, great for overall body health. But it's also got magnesium malate, which is good for the muscles, and magnesium taurate, which is good for your heart. So it's got multiple forms of magnesium that are great for your overall body. And it comes with vitamin D and boron. Vitamin D and boron work with magnesium to really improve bone health. So that makes magnesium more valuable to your bones, all those three together. And it's got shilajit, which increases absorption. So I designed this to be the very best magnesium available to you today, and it is on sale right now. This is great for improving sleep, but also improving mood, reducing stress and anxiety, improving bone health, improving muscle health, improving energy function. So many benefits of magnesium, and you can try it absolutely risk-free. It comes with an unconditional 6-month money-back guarantee. If you don't absolutely love it, I'm happy to refund your money, but I want you to try this because so many people get a great benefit of magnesium, and this is the best magnesium available. So if you want to get this on sale, click the link below or go to robertlove.net to try it risk-free. I want to get some clarity from you about something that's a little controversial or very controversial, depending on who you're talking to, depending upon the context, is gender differences or sex differences. Some people will not be too happy with you if you say men and women are different with regards to emotions, how they feel and experience emotions. I would love your take on this as an expert and what men and women can understand about each other regarding their emotions, so that way their emotional communication will be better understood.
Well, a couple of things. One is what the research shows developmentally is that the gender differences emerge later on. It's not like you're born that way. I always joke, Lady Gaga got it wrong. Um, it's not true. But it's not as if, we're born that, boys don't cry and girls are all sugar and spice or whatever those expressions are. That's nurture. That's gender socialization. That's parents of kids saying, son, you gotta toughen up. Come here, honey, give me a hug. That is socialized. So most of the gender differences that we see are not a result of biology, but a result of nurture. That's important, I think, to talk about. And most of the differences start showing up around kindergarten, first grade, second grade. Any questions about that?
I remember Daniel Goleman talked about these differences on the playground in his book, Emotional Intelligence. He
Yeah.
talked about how when someone gets hurt in a sporting event or a game the kids are playing, if it's a boy, they kind of carry him off and say, get off the field. We want to keep playing. But if it's a girl who gets hurt, the girls then come to this person. Oh, are you okay? Oh, my goodness, stop the game. We have a hurt person.
Right.
And it's fascinating because that seems to me a difference in values, right? The boys kind of want to keep playing and because it's recess, and frankly, with professional sports, you see the same thing. If someone's hurt, we stop the game as short as we can to get them off the field and then play. Whereas the girls, they care about the person and they want to make sure that they're okay. And that connecting with them seems to be more important.
Yeah. And what you're getting at too, I think, is the socialization piece around the temperament match. So, for example, my father was, we'll call him a stereotypical tough guy. He grew up in the Bronx, between us, well, between now all of your listeners and us. He would say things like, son, you gotta toughen up. And I'd be, like, Dad, look at me. Like, I'm not a tough guy. And then, he'd say things he wanted to like kind of push me to be this tough guy. And he'd say things like, son, I used to beat kids up like you. I'm like, oh, I'm sure that was what you learned in parenting 101 class. But he had this view that boys have to be a certain way. I have a 5th degree black belt now, just so you know. I am a tough guy.
You do look tough. I can only see from the neck. You look like a very fit human being just from.
Yeah, I work out. I'm a very sensitive guy. Like, I cry very easily. I'm startled very easily with loud noises. you know. And I think this is it's a weird thing. There's like a we've been, socialized across, hundreds of years to think, oh, Mark's got to be the hunter-gatherer, the tough guy, so we're gonna make him tough. And young women and girls have to be a certain way. And we have to move away from that way of thinking. I think a lot. Boys should be able to cry. We want, most women in heterosexual relationships don't want to be with a man who is completely stoic. That's not that enjoyable, nor does, any relationship. So, all right, we got gender differences, they emerge. Interestingly enough, what my research showed for many years among adults, when I would study emotional intelligence and I would look for gender differences, in a strictly binary way, what we'd find is that there was one gender who self-reported as being very high in emotional intelligence. And that was the same gender that scored a lot lower than the other gender in emotional intelligence. So what do you think?
Well, if they scored lower, it's got to be men.
Exactly.
So I'm amazed that men are rating themselves high in emotional intelligence. They might not be hearing the word emotional. They might just think intelligence, or
Yeah.
or I'm going to tell I got to be high in that, right? My guess is that most people who are low in emotional intelligence don't know that they're low in emotional intelligence. That would be my guess.
Yeah. Well, and I just think that men think they're better at everything than everybody.
Yes, I love
So
I love that study, the Better Than Yourself study.
that's
This is, I mean, I was at Swarthmore 20 years ago. I had my 28th year reunion, and I remember that study. It's like, okay, where are you on the driving spectrum scale? Average, below average, above average. People rank themselves an 8, and then they say, okay, great. By the way, the average person ranked themselves an 8. Where do you rank yourself? And then you rank yourself above that. Well, if the average driver's an 8, I'm an 8.5 or I'm a 9, and so you rank yourself better than yourself. In that study, which is fascinating. And my guess
yeah,
is men might be more vulnerable to that than
they are.
women.
Even with emotional intelligence, they're just better at everything. But what we did find was that on average, uh, women are about a half a standard deviation to one full standard deviation higher in emotional intelligence than men.
Can you help our audience understand that? That's a huge difference.
Yeah, so usually it's like a mean of 115 is the standard deviation. So anywhere from 7 to 15 points higher,
So
in emotional intelligence.
think IQ. The average of the population is 100. Standard deviation is 15. So women are 7 to 15 IQ points or emotional intelligence
Yes.
points higher than men, which is the difference. What's the difference in intelligence between a 10 and a 15? And then what's the average IQ of someone at Yale, so people can understand this in context?
Yeah, I would just say that if we just think about it as a distribution, and this little bell curvy thing, 80% of people are within that kind of center of it, and then we have the extremes on the side. So most people, there's very few people with an IQ of like 150, 160. There's very few people, with very low IQs. A lot of people in the middle. But, when you think about, you know, 10% higher, 10% of something is a lot. And I just would keep it that simple. I would just say like, well, if on average women are about 10% higher in this ability than men, that's pretty profound.
That's substantial. Goodness. And so the sex differences, you think are nurture based. They emerge at kindergarten around socialization, and women are substantially more emotionally intelligent.
Well, and I think what the gender differences that happen over development is that, both moms and dads speak more to their female children about emotions.
Mhm.
They're more likely to give them language for emotions. They're more likely to use emotion talk with their kids. Um, and we're more kind of inhibited with our male children.
I had a father very similar to you. He said, men don't cry. There's two emotions we're allowed to show as men: happiness and anger. And as an adult, I've realized, boy, how much I default to anger if I don't know how to. If I'm not supposed to be happy, maybe I should be angry. And just anger was the default. Thankfully, my dad read emotional intelligence maybe 10 years ago, and he's actually been progressing, and he's used he's used the language from it, which has been really awesome. So it's never too late, even for men, even for
Mhm.
older men, to adjust their emotional intelligence. If you or someone you love has Alzheimer's or another form of dementia, I want you to know there is hope. Alzheimer's is preventable and it is even reversible. In fact, we are reversing Alzheimer's in my medical clinic here in Florida. My partner and medical director is Dr. Josh Hellman, a medical doctor trained at Harvard who specializes in preventing and reversing Alzheimer's disease, and we are reversing Alzheimer's in our patients. If you'd like to learn more about working with us to both prevent Alzheimer's and even reverse Alzheimer's and reverse memory loss associated with other forms of dementia, we would love to hear from you and send you some free information so you can learn what we are doing and see if it's a fit for you to come down and work with us in our clinic. We also work with other clinics around the country to help patients both prevent Alzheimer's as well as to reverse Alzheimer's and reverse memory loss associated with dementia. So if you'd like to learn more, go to brainpowerclinics.com. Go to brainpowerclinics.com and then enter your information. We will send you some free information, and then we hope to work with you, if we can be helpful to you, to help you prevent and reverse Alzheimer's disease. So I'd love to get practical with this. And so how can we use strategies to do prime, to prevent, reduce, initiate,
Yeah.
and enhance emotions in a interesting context?
Yeah. So there are lots of strategies. I mean, I think the first is what I call permission to feel. That, we've been talking a lot about parenting, so we'll just keep it in that context for a minute. But for, both moms and dads, we have to give our kids permission to feel. There's no bad emotion. It's okay to feel. And the same thing applies to couples and, friendships and partners. I mean, everybody, the mindset is like, it's okay to feel, just period. And if we can adopt that mindset that there's no bad emotions and it's okay to feel, by the way, my research shows is that that's one of the strongest predictors of your well-being.
Really? Can you
Mhm.
help me
Yeah,
understand?
that just people who have that belief system that there's no such thing as a bad emotion and that all emotions are okay, they just have greater well-being.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Probably much richer life as well, to experience the full gamut of emotions, not make themselves
exactly.
wrong or other people wrong.
And it's very kind of freeing, when you think about it, because it's like, oh, no judgment. By the way, and that's my research, which I've done a tremendous amount of research in this particular space, is that when it comes to our feelings, what people are desperate for are three things: non-judgment, someone who listens, and someone who shows empathy and compassion.
I want to get this down. Three things people are desperate for. This could be your spouse. This could be your children. This could be people at work.
Yourself.
Yourself. I'm desperate for these things. Number one, non-judgment. Number two is listening. And number three is empathy. Um, Empathy is a word that often gets thrown around with compassion.
Mhm.
Can you help make empathy a little bit more concrete?
Yeah. So I think there is, empathy around. Let me articulate for you like what we call the three kinds of empathy. The first is cognitive empathy, which is, Robert, I understand that you have these strong feelings. I understand intellectually your experiences. Then there's emotional empathy, which is, Robert, I felt what you felt. I understand that you felt sad or shame at some point in your life because I have felt that way too. And then there's the deeper kind of empathy, which we'll call compassionate empathy or compassionate or just compassion, which is not only do I, feel what you feel, but I care. I want to do something about it. About 5 years ago, I coined this concept. I'm going to call it permission to feel. And what I meant by that is that we as adults and our kids feel as if we can be our true, full feeling selves with our being, I can accept my own emotions, but I'm also in a relationship or, there is an adult in my life or a colleague a parent who creates the conditions for me to accept my emotions and be my true, fulfilling self. And what I found in that research was that only about a third of us felt as kids that we had permission to feel.
Wow.
And the characteristics of the people who gave us permission to feel were people who were non-judgmental, were good listeners, and who showed empathy. And then empathy is a tricky piece because some people think, well, you can't really feel what another person feels, and that whole walking in someone else's shoes. But what it really means in this context is about compassion. It's about that we want people to allow us to say what we're feeling without judging us. We want them to listen to us and just hear us out. And then we want them to be supportive and caring. Just that's it. What I found fascinating in the research is that no one ever said the person was brilliant or smart or wise or had perfect test scores or had a great grade point average or was a problem solver or even a fixer. No one wants to be around that. We just want to be around people who give us attention and have presence.
It's so fascinating because if we look at the research on business success, rarely is intelligence the difference that makes the difference. Generally, people who are successful in most domains are intelligent or more intelligent than average. But the difference, I mean, Richard Branson's a great example. He talks about his emotional intelligence, his ability to size up another human. Do I trust this person? Do I like this person? Would I want to work with this person? Do I want them representing my company? That's very different than someone who's really in their head about statistics and numbers and the things we associate with logical intelligence. And so I think this is happening in the schools. You might know this better than I do. I wasn't taught emotional intelligence in schools. It's starting, I had a conversation with my old high school. It's starting to be incorporated because it's so important for success in the business world and in our personal lives. And the idea that we only train intelligence in school, logical intelligence, cognitive intelligence versus the emotional intelligence, we're missing out on this massive opportunity to make really efficient, effective, wonderful humans for the workplace.
Well, I'm here to tell you that that's my entire career is building out emotionally intelligent school systems. And so we have a program that's called Ruler, RULER, which stands for the 5 skills of emotional intelligence, which are recognizing, understanding, labeling, expressing, and regulating emotions. And I am proud to say that that program is now in 5,000 schools across the United States.
Right. You're watching at home. Let's give a big ovation for Dr. Brackett. That's wonderful. Congratulations. What are the results of these schools? I'm assuming you're measuring these children and following up with them and seeing the results.
We first work with educators to make sure that they learn how to implement it well and they can apply it to their own lives. We see less burnout, less stress. We see better, more positive climates in schools, cultures and climates. We even see teachers who are better instructors after 2 years because they infuse the principles of emotional intelligence into the pedagogy, into the way they teach kids. They spend less time off task. I mean, really great benefits for the adult educator.
Oh.
For the kids, we see they develop emotional intelligence skills. They make better decisions. They're seen as greater leaders. They have better academic performance, less bullying, and the list goes on. So,
less bullying, that's a darn big deal.
Yeah. This is an important set of skills. And my dream, I want to create an emotion revolution.
Amen. And so if people want to learn more about Ruler, if they want to get that in their schools, if there's some parents watching say, how do we bring this program to our school, or if someone's doing homeschooling or they're working with a charter school, how do they get access to this? How can they bring this into their school?
Just go to my center's website, which is rulerapproach.org, and you can learn all about our school-based programs. And in my book, I have a whole chapter on what it looks like and sounds like, and I'm going to have such amazing, given that I've worked with 5,000 schools and I've reached now 7 million children across the
Great.
I visited many schools and I talk with kids, some of whom, have lived with this work for 10 years. It's amazing. I'll give you one example, talk about all emotions matter. So I had a pretty tough childhood that had a lot of bullying. I even had abuse in my childhood, unfortunately. And I just, I was a terrible student. I was failing as a student, as a middle school, I just couldn't focus. I was so stressed out and worried. And then I had an uncle, his name was Uncle Marvin, who was a middle school teacher who literally was writing a curriculum to teach kids about emotional intelligence back in the 1970s, who came into my life, gave me language for my feelings, and gave me strategies to deal with my feelings. And it completely turned my life around. As a matter of fact, I owe my whole career to him. It was an amazing human being. And so he and I went on this journey together. He was retired. I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. And we wrote this curriculum. And that's actually what got me to go get my PhD, which maybe then kind of led me to a professor at Yale, which led to me opening the Center for Emotional Intelligence at Yale, which now, is a team of 40 people who are scientists and practitioners doing this work. And so I share that background story because I'm visiting schools all the time, and a lot of kids, they're so curious, Dr. Brackett, why are you so passionate about teaching kids about their feelings? Why is it, and I tell them a little bit about my story. And this young girl, she was in 6th grade. She said to me, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you had such a hard time in school. Like, I feel terrible that you were bullied and that you didn't like school because I love school and I love this school." And I said, "Tell me more." Well, she goes, "I can't imagine, that you were bullied. I can't imagine, that no one ever cared about how you felt." I said, "Tell me more." She said, "Well, because I can't think of a day that I've gone to school here where someone didn't actually care about how I felt."
Wow.
And I was like, that's when you feel like, okay, I've made it because, this is one kid in a school and this is in Brooklyn, New York, where I was. And I was just so, you know, just blown away by how, you know, the work in a school can help a kid feel secure and feel safe and confident and, you know, have that ability to achieve her dreams.
That's fantastic. So for those who want to learn more, we'll have this linked in the notes below, rulerapproach.org. Is that correct?
Right. Yep.
Rulerapproach.org. Please learn more there, resources there. And if they want to look up, can they look up research if they search Center for Emotional Intelligence at Yale? Will that
All that comes out. Yeah.
Now, my guess is when you visit these schools, you probably get a lot of hugs. Do you get a lot of hugs?
Well, you have to be careful about that, because you don't want to be, protect, be mindful of boundaries. But I get a lot of virtual hugs and some hugs too. I just get, it's amazing to me how it impacts people because, as I shared, only 1/3 of us felt like we had permission to feel as kids. So that means 2/3 of us never had someone that we felt safe and comfortable to talk to about our feelings. And then all of a sudden, this guy named Mark comes in and I give you permission to feel, and I give you permission to feel. And then, and then a year later, they're like, I never knew it. I mean, I was just like, my gosh, I feel so self-aware. I can't believe it. I can tell the difference between my, frustration and my anger and my disappointment and I know the difference now between excited and elated and contentment and happiness. And I have strategies to regulate my feelings. And I feel more confident in having difficult conversations. And it's pretty cool.
That's massive. As I'm thinking about this, one thing that struck me in school, so I was diagnosed with ADHD. I started taking medication either in 3rd or 4th grade. I think it was 4th. My parents argue it was the 3rd grade, but I took it throughout middle school, high school, and then into college. I took Adderall, and I noticed this. Well, I was way behind emotionally intelligence for my peers, and I was quite unpopular. I didn't have any idea why people were cool or not cool. I played sports and I was in the honors classes. I didn't know why I wasn't cool. I'm like, look, I'm checking these boxes that I'm checking on my college resume. Why don't I have more friends? And then as an adult, I realized, wow, I'm a jerk on Adderall. If you're not a book, if you're not work, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to listen. I don't want you around me. I'm here to do work and make progress, and I'm so important and smart. That was me on Adderall. And I'm just such a nicer person, not on Adderall and not taking stimulants. And then, as you know, one of the impacts of stimulant medication is emotional blunting. We actually feel less of our emotions. This is one of the reasons why the Germans gave their tank drivers, the Nazis gave their tank drivers methamphetamine. They called it Panzer chocolate. Panzer's the tank, right? They want them driving all night. And if you kill someone, we don't want you feeling anything. We want you driving straight across Europe into France, running over anyone who's in your way. We want it done now. And methamphetamine, great way to keep them awake and reduce emotions in people who are killing people. So this concerns me about the massive diagnosis of ADHD in young children and what I would call the overprescription of very young children. I've heard as young as 3, which is mind-boggling to me that you give amphetamine to someone who's 3 years old. But the impact of this, not only on their development, but also on their emotions, because I didn't feel stuff when I was on Adderall. Those emotions weren't there. It was just all up here in the head.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I'm a prevention scientist. So, my goal is to figure out ways to teach kids the skills they need to navigate their lives so that we have less kids who need therapy, less kids who have diagnoses later on. And the research shows is that there is a cost benefit to doing it. Unfortunately, we are in a world right now, in a society, in a country that would rather not address prevention and wait until people's full-blown, anxiety, depression, or whatever else it is diagnosed and then treated, which is so much more expensive and harder to do. It's crazy to me how hard it is to make the work that we do on emotional intelligence a permanent part of the way people educate kids.
So let's make this practical. I know we're running out of time here. So I'd love to apply Prime or part of Prime to a parent with a child, and then if we have time, 2 spouses dealing with emotionally challenging situations. So child comes home from school, they're upset they were just bullied, or they lose their patience at the dinner table. What's a healthy response from a parent to help coach their child in that situation?
I'll tell you something. It's the same thing whether it's a parent with a kid, a leader with an employee, brothers. Is the first step is be the role model. Be the first. Be the first to regulate. Don't allow someone else's behavior to activate you in a way that you will behave in a way that you regret later on. And so what that means is that you have to deactivate. I tell parents and I tell partners, the first thing is you got to deactivate so you can actually regulate. And deactivation might be like a little whisper under your breath, oh, don't say that. Don't say. Or take a deep breath, or take a step back, or just say, I need a second. Like fill the space. The way we think about emotions or in responses that, as we were talking about Germany, well, Viktor Frankl, who was wrote Man's Search for Meaning, a very famous book, really talked about, he had this phrase that whether he coined it or not, no one's sure, but it's his idea. Between stimulus and response, there is space. In that space is the power to choose your response. In your response lies your growth and freedom. And so what we have to do is we have to help adults, especially, and kids eventually, build the space between, like, mommy, I hate you, or your partner says, why'd you do that? And you want to oh, no, take the breath, build the space.
So we regulate ourselves before we try to help other people. Similar to the airplanes.
Otherwise, you automatic habitual. If you don't do that, what happens is that you rely on all those automatic habitual unhelpful ways. Usually not helpful.
So I'm regulating me. I'm the model. Fantastic. Yes. So could be breath work. We could do the Andrew Huberman physiological sigh.
Yeah.
2 inhales, slow exhale. Okay, I'm regulated. Son, daughter, your emotions are welcome.
Yes. Tell me more. What happened, honey? And then you listen. And you don't talk. You just listen. Learn what happened. Listen for the story. Because here's the thing. If I came home and let's say just role playing for a minute, I was your father, I was your kid. And so Robert, I come home from school. I'm like, I hate school. How am I feeling?
Uh, Angry. There might be some fear in there. Probably, you look really tense.
Yeah. But do you know how I'm feeling?
No, I'm guessing.
You are guessing. And here's what you need to know. We are terrible at reading people's emotions from their behavior.
Hmm.
We are making our best guess, but that guess is often wrong because kids, especially based on the gender conversation we had earlier, they're masterful at masking their true emotions. Let's say I came home and did that, said that to you, I hate school. It could be that I was on the playground and someone spit on me and I feel disgust and shame that I didn't fight back. And I'm coming home and I'm yelling and screaming that I hate school. And you might think I'm angry because I'm kind of like acting out, but I might be deep inside feeling shame. And the question is, are you going to be the adult that I feel safe and comfortable telling that I feel shame?
Hmm.
Are you going to create the conditions for me to have that conversation? You're going to ask me to build that gentleness into the kind of relationship to say, honey, daddy's seeing that you're feeling some really strong emotions right now. Maybe why don't we take a walk for a few minutes to just bring our energy down so that way we can talk about it. It sounds like you're really upset, but I want to get to know, I really want to help you, but let's, why don't we just take a little time to relax? And then you can ask those questions like, tell me about your day. Tell me what happened. But here's the trick. The adult has to understand emotional language. Because if you don't know that shame is about diminished self-worth, that anger is about an injustice, that disappointment is about unmet expectations, what happens is that the adult doesn't really understand how to ask the questions to find out what the real feeling is. Does that make sense?
Yes. So the adult needs to be equipped with the right language to be able to be of help, to be of service.
Exactly. Because you got to label it to regulate it. So then you go from validating and finding out the real feeling to then having the conversation about what we might do. And knowing that it's disappointment is very different than anger, than shame. The whole action strategy, the whole behavioral kind of support that you create would be very different as a result of knowing the actual feeling.
Now, how can we do this across partners in a way that's respectful and doesn't come across as patronizing?
Yep. Believe me, I've been working on that for 30 years. And sometimes it works and many times it doesn't. It's funny because I get this thing like, oh, so you're trying to regulate right now, honey, right? And I'm like, kinda. Yeah. So you really want to say something that's like not kind, but you're regulating. And I'm like, exactly. And if you really want to, what's your goal here, right? So yes, it's not so scripted, and it's getting to know the person. So, for example, if your significant other or spouse, you know, they need more time for processing, but you like to solve the problem immediately, you're going to have some conflict. And so you're going to have to either just acknowledge the fact that you're not going to get things resolved in the way you want them to be resolved in that moment, because that person needs to take a walk because they're so triggered and activated. They're not going to be able to have the conversation with you. This is why you have to know each other really well and give each other the permission to kind of use what strategies work best for them.
So this was a fantastic interview with Dr. Marc Brackett. Our time was cut short. If you'd like to bring him back on the podcast, please comment below and let us know, and I will do my very best to bring him back. He has a very, very busy schedule.